Get out. You don't belong to this family. The words sliced through the air like a cold blade, silencing the entire room in an instant. Every pair of eyes turned toward Emily Carter, who stood frozen at the center of her grandfather's birthday celebration, clutching a wrinkled letter that trembled between her fingers. She had walked in with nothing more than a simple wish, to offer her grandfather a warm birthday greeting. Instead, she found herself staring into the harsh reality that someone had deliberately erased her place in the bloodline she had spent her whole life believing in that moment. Emily wasn't just pushed out of a party. She was pushed out of the family story that should have been hers by right. Hello everyone, and welcome to Vale of Hearts, a place where love finds its way through the quietest corners of the soul. And today, let's listen to the story of a girl cast aside by those who shared her blood, only to rise again, stronger, sharper, and far more powerful than anyone ever expected. The celebration was supposed to be a grand one, Whitewood Estate's 70th anniversary. A night filled with glittering chandeliers, classical music, and generations of family pride. But the moment Mia Carter stepped onto the marble entrance, the entire atmosphere shifted, as if the house itself rejected her presence. She barely had time to take in the sight before a firm hand blocked her path. It was Marcus Whitewood, her uncle by name, a stranger by action. His voice carried above the music, sharp enough to slice the night in half. Everyone, listen carefully, Marcus announced, turning to the crowd that had abruptly quieted. She doesn't belong here. Mia is not a Whitewood. The DNA test proves she has no blood relation to this family. A heavy silence fell. Faces she had known since childhood stared at her as though she were a ghost intruding on a story that no longer included her. Some whispered. Others stepped back, as if distancing themselves would keep them clean of the scandal he had thrown into the room. Mia's breath caught. For a moment, she wondered if she had misheard him, if this was some cruel joke meant for someone else. But then she saw the expression in his eyes, triumph, not cruelty. He wanted her gone. Beneath the golden chandeliers, Eleanor Whitewood, Mia's grandmother, slowly rose from her seat. Her posture was regal, impeccable, unshakable, and her gaze landed on Mia like winter frost. Marcus is right, Eleanor said, her voice calm yet merciless. You should leave. This celebration is for family, and only family. The words hit harder than a slap. Mia swallowed the ache forming in her throat as dozens of eyes followed her every movement, dissecting her humiliation. She felt like a stain someone was trying to scrub off an immaculate surface. She stepped back, her heels echoing sharply against the marble. The whispers rose behind her, soft but slicing. I knew it. She never fit. Poor girl. Or maybe not. Outside, the cold air rushed into her lungs, grounding her. Only then did she look down at the folded paper she had been clutching the entire night, the DNA test Marcus had cited. Under the porch light, the truth stared back at her. The edges were smudged. Key lines had been edited. Correction fluid covered entire sections. It wasn't just wrong. It was tampered with, deliberately, and someone inside that glittering house had gone through great lengths to erase her from their bloodline. That night, as Mia walked away from the glittering mansion with the forged document in her hand, she didn't just leave the Whitewood estate, she left behind the identity she thought she had. But the world had a way of pulling her forward. Even when her heart clung to the pieces left behind, life outside the Whitewood gates was far humbler. Far quieter. Most mornings, Mia stood behind the worn wooden counter at Bloom & Brew, a small coffee shop tucked between a bookstore and a flower vendor on a busy downtown street. The bell above the door chimed endlessly, and the comforting aroma of roasted beans filled the air. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what people imagined when they heard the name Whitewood. But it was hers, a place where the shadows of wealth and family politics couldn't chase her. She moved with practiced ease, pouring lattes and scribbling names on cups while pretending her world hadn't cracked open the night before. Only one person noticed the grief she tried to hide. Liam Turner, her coworker and closest friend, watched her quietly as she arranged pastries in the display case. He wasn't the loud, dramatic type. His presence was steady, warm, like sunlight finding its way through a cloudy day. Did something happen? He finally asked, voice low, careful. Mia hesitated before answering. Just family stuff. Liam didn't push, though she could see the worry behind his eyes. He had always been like this, patient, gentle, willing to wait until she was ready. And somehow, that made her want to cry even more. Her mother had raised her with strict boundaries Mia never questioned until now. Growing up, mentions of the Whitewood family were met with silence or a subtle shift in her mother's expression. Like a door being quietly closed. Some places aren't meant for us, Mia. Some people bring more pain than answers. Those were the phrases her mother repeated whenever Mia asked why she couldn't meet her grandparents, her uncles, or her cousins. The explanations were vague, wrapped in sorrow and secrets, and Mia, a child hungry for clarity, learned to stop asking. But everything changed the year her mother passed away. 2 weeks after the funeral, When the house was still filled with the scent of lilies and unopened condolences, a thick ivory envelope arrived. The seal bore the Whitewood crest. Inside was an invitation, not warm, not affectionate, but formal. A summons, almost. Her mother had spent her entire life keeping Mia away from that mansion. Yet someone there wanted her to return. She should have been afraid. She should have thrown it away. But grief made strange things feel logical. And Mia, desperate for any connection to her mother's past, decided to go. She had no idea the visit would end with her being erased in front of a room full of strangers who claimed to be her family, but not everyone in that mansion had looked at her with disdain. Aidan Whitewood, her cousin, had stood watching from a corner of the ballroom the night she was humiliated. His eyes were softer, more conflicted. While others whispered or stared, Aidan looked stunned. Almost guilty. He hadn't spoken a word to her since the announcement, but something in his gaze lingered, like he knew more than he could say. Back then, Mia brushed it off. Now, as she wiped down tables at the cafe, the memory resurfaced. Was he hiding something? Or trying to protect someone? And then there was Eleanor Whitewood, the ruthless matriarch. Cold. Controlled. Impossible to read. The way she dismissed Mia felt too prepared, too rehearsed, like she had been waiting for this moment. And that made everything even more frightening, because if the forged DNA report was part of a plan, then someone inside that house wanted Mia out of the picture. Completely. As the evening crowd thinned, Mia stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The city lights flickered across the pavement, and the wind carried the faint sound of a street musician playing nearby. For a moment, she let herself breathe. Liam leaned against the doorway behind her, arms crossed loosely. If you ever need to talk, he said softly, I'm here. You don't have to carry everything alone. Mia managed a small smile. Thanks. Really. But she knew the truth, there were things she couldn't tell him yet. Not until she understood more, because the Whitewood estate wasn't just a mansion filled with old money and family portraits. It was a labyrinth of hidden rooms, sealed doors, and stories whispered only behind locked walls, and somehow, she was tied to secrets she had never been allowed to hear. Days passed, yet the sting of being erased from her own bloodline refused to fade. Mia tried to bury herself in the rhythm of the cafe, but the unease followed her like a shadow, quiet, persistent, watching. And just when she thought life couldn't unravel any further, something arrived that changed everything. It showed up on a quiet morning, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a fading blue ribbon. The package sat on her doorstep with no return address. No note, only her name written in her mother's handwriting. Mia froze. She hadn't seen that handwriting in months. Not since the funeral and the painful sorting of belongings she never wanted to touch again. Her breath caught as she knelt to pick it up. The box was heavier than she expected. As if it carried years of secrets inside, she brought it into her living room, set it carefully on the table, and stared at it for a long moment before finally untying the ribbon. Inside, she found 3 items, each one sharp enough to cut through every lie she'd been told. The first was a photograph. It showed her mother. Younger, vibrant, smiling in a way Mia had never witnessed. Standing beside her was a man Mia didn't recognize, tall, sharply dressed, with a familiar intensity in his eyes. Something about him felt unsettlingly connected to everything she didn't know. Her hands trembled slightly as she traced her mother's face. Who were you to her? She whispered, staring at the stranger who seemed far too close. Far too significant. The second item was even more shocking, a leather-bound certificate confirming 30% ownership of the Whitewood Corporation. Signed and sealed over 25 years ago, long before Mia was born. Mia blinked in disbelief. She had grown up thinking she had nothing. No inheritance, no connection, nothing but memories of her mother working long nights to make sure they stayed afloat. And yet here it was, proof that her mother had once held a portion of one of the most powerful family-owned corporations in the state. A portion that by law, by blood, belonged to Mia now. The realization settled over her slowly, like a storm cloud preparing to break. If she held this, if she had always been meant to hold this, then someone in that mansion had taken great lengths to make sure she never knew. The third item was a letter, sealed in an envelope that looked worn from years of being handled. Her mother had written her name on the front in that gentle script Mia remembered from birthday cards and notes left on the kitchen counter. Mia hesitated before opening it, afraid the words inside would hurt more than they helped. But she forced herself to break the seal. The letter was short. Painfully short. My sweet Mia, you are the only one who has the right to uncover the truth. If everything is taken from you, you must find what was meant to be yours. When lies replace blood, trust your heart, and follow where the truth leads. There was no signature, but she didn't need one. She could hear her mother's voice in every word. Mia folded the letter carefully, her throat tightening. She thought she had already lost everything, but now she understood, she had only lost the illusions. The truth had been hidden, stolen, rewritten. And her mother had known it would happen. She stared again at the photo, at the stranger beside her mother. Was he the key? Was he connected to the inheritance? Or to the forged DNA test? Every thread in her life was pointing back to one place, the Whitewood estate, the place she had been pushed out of. The place that had declared she didn't belong. The place that robbed her of her mother's legacy. The anger came quietly at first, a simmer beneath her ribs. Then it grew, stronger, clearer, sharpening something inside her that she didn't know she possessed. For the first time, Mia wasn't afraid of that mansion. She wasn't afraid of Marcus. She wasn't even afraid of Eleanor's cold, unblinking judgment. She was determined. She slipped the photograph, the share certificate, and the folded letter back into the box. Then she rose from the couch with a steadiness that surprised even herself. There was only one thought in her mind: they took what was hers. Now she was going back to take it back. With a final breath, she grabbed her coat, stepped outside, and headed toward the place where lies were born and buried, the Whitewood estate. With the box her mother left behind pressed firmly against her chest, Mia thought courage would feel like fire. Instead, it felt like a steady weight, quiet, heavy, and undeniably present. The truth was no longer something she stumbled into. It was something she was choosing to confront. And there was only one place to start. The Whitewood estate loomed against the evening sky, its windows glowing with warm light that did nothing to soften the stone walls or the history they hid. Mia approached the front doors with her heart pounding in her throat. She knocked once. Twice. 3 times, nothing. She could hear voices inside, footsteps, the clinking of silverware, proof of life, proof that they heard her and were intentionally refusing to answer. She knocked again, harder this time, still nothing. Just when she considered walking away, the door cracked open an inch, revealing a sliver of Mrs. Hathaway, the longtime housekeeper who raised generations of Whitewoods. Her face tightened. "Miss, I'm not sure you should be here." "I have every right to be here," Mia replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I need to speak with them." Mrs. Hathaway hesitated, her eyes softening. But then a sharp voice sliced down the hall. "Who is it?" "Marcus." The door instantly opened wider. Mrs. Hathaway stepped aside reluctantly. And Marcus appeared, fixing Mia with a smirk that didn't bother hiding his disdain. "Well," he said, crossing his arms, "if it isn't the prodigal stray." Mia forced herself not to react. "I need to talk to the family." "You're not family," he snapped. "And you have no business here." "I do," she said quietly, "and you know it." He inhaled sharply, as if her defiance offended him. But instead of throwing her out on the porch again, he stepped aside with an exaggerated gesture. "Fine. Let the girl embarrass herself properly this time." The estate was holding a private family dinner, long mahogany table, polished crystal, Eleanor seated at the head like a carved figure of authority. Aiden sat near her, stiff, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The moment Mia stepped in, a ripple of whispers ran through the room. Marcus raised his glass. "Look who's returned," he announced. "The little outsider who still thinks she belongs." "Stop it," Aiden muttered, his jaw tight. Marcus shot him a glare. "You stay out of this." Mia's fists clenched. She forced herself to breathe. "I came because I found something. Something my mother left behind." Her words were met with cold silence. Marcus leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "Your mother left you lies. We expected you to move on, not crawl back here waving imaginary rights." "It's not imaginary," Mia said, pulling out the photograph and placing it on the table. "This is my mother. And this man, who is he?" Marcus's expression flickered, just for a second. "Irrelevant. Probably a friend." "Don't lie," Mia whispered. Aiden shifted uncomfortably. He looked as if he wanted to speak, but Marcus's stare pinned him in place like a nail. And Mia continued, placing the next item on the table, the leather-bound share certificate. The room stiffened collectively. "My mother owned 30% of this company," she said. "And that inheritance was supposed to come to me." Eleanor finally looked up, her silver eyes cold and unreadable. "You are mistaken. That certificate means nothing without bloodline proof." "And what if the proof was altered?" Mia asked. She pulled out the DNA results Marcus had flaunted at the celebration, and laid it next to a new document, the untouched hospital copy Liam had tracked down only hours before. The real one. The room froze. The differences were unmistakable. Lines altered. Sections whited out. Signatures tampered with. Marcus tried to laugh, but it came out strained. "You expect us to believe, Marcus?" Aiden suddenly interjected, voice sharp. "Stop." Marcus turned on him. "You don't get to speak." "Yes," Aiden said, rising to his feet, "I do." His voice trembled with anger. "You forged the results. You threatened Dr. Hughes to alter the file. I was there when you confronted him. I saw everything." Mia stared at Aiden, shock rippling through her. The entire table erupted in whispers. Marcus's face went red with fury. "You're lying." But Aiden shook his head. "No. You are." Eleanor lifted a hand, silencing the room instantly. "Marcus," she said slowly, her tone cutting like a blade, "is this true?" Marcus opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He didn't need to answer. His silence was enough. Mia's heart pounded, not with fear, but with clarity. You erased me, she said softly. You erased my mother. You stole what was ours. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. Your mother left this family long before you were born. She walked away, she didn't deserve anything. Mia's voice shook, but her words didn't falter. Then why did you need to forge evidence to keep me from knowing the truth? Marcus froze. Aiden lowered his gaze. Because he knew that if you came back, everything would unravel. Eleanor stood, slow but commanding. Her gaze landed on Mia, sharp as frost. You shouldn't have come back. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't mocking. It was warning. You don't understand what this family is capable of, Eleanor continued. What you're digging into puts you in danger. You should walk away now, while you still can. Mia's pulse hammered, but she held her ground. Danger from who? Eleanor didn't answer. Marcus's breath came out heavy. See? Even she knows. You were never meant to be part of this world, Mia. You're an outsider. A mistake. The words cut deep, but they didn't break her. Maybe I was, Mia said softly. But I'm done being silent. The room felt suffocating, thick with secrets, tension, and decades of buried betrayal. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Mia stepped back from the table, eyes steady, voice clear. I'm not leaving. Not until I know everything. The night at the Whitewood dinner table had left Mia shaking, not from fear, but from the force of everything she'd uncovered. Lies, power, forged bloodlines, and the undeniable feeling that someone inside that estate was still hiding the largest truth of all. She barely slept, replaying every word, every stare, every silence. And at dawn, her phone rang. Aiden, his voice was tight, urgent. We need to talk, he said. Somewhere private. Mia met him behind the outskirts of town, where an abandoned storage warehouse stood like a scar among overgrown fields. The air was cold, crisp. Aiden paced near the entrance, his hands buried in his coat pockets. Shoulders tense. When he saw her, his expression shifted, relief mixed with guilt. You came, he said quietly. You said it was important, she replied. I figured you weren't calling to apologize for dinner. Aiden let out a shaky breath. No. Mia. This is about more than what happened last night. It's about your mother. Her chest tightened. What about her? He motioned for her to follow him inside. The warehouse was dim, lit only by the weak light filtering through cracked windows. Dust floated in the air like forgotten memories. Aiden stopped near a metal table and turned toward her. Mia, he began, voice trembling. Your mother? She wasn't just a relative. She was Grandma Eleanor's daughter. Mia stared at him, stunned. That's not possible. My mother never. I know. Aiden cut in gently. She hid it. Eleanor hid it. And Marcus? He used it. The weight of the revelation sank into Mia's bones like ice. You're telling me my mother was Eleanor's daughter? Then why did no one ever say anything? Why would she be erased like that? Aiden swallowed hard, looking like someone who'd been holding this truth for years. Because she was supposed to inherit the company. The words echoed through the warehouse. Sharp and heavy. Your mother, Aiden continued, was brilliant. Strategic. She understood the business better than Marcus ever could. Eleanor saw it early. That's why she gave your mother those shares, 30%, to protect her. To ensure she had a voice in the company. Mia shook her head, trying to steady her breath. But she left. Why would she leave all of that behind? Because Marcus never wanted her there, Aiden said. He made her life hell. Constant jealousy, constant sabotage. He was terrified she would become the next successor. A bitter laugh slipped from Mia. So he bullied her out of the family business? Aiden's jaw tightened. It was worse than that. He reached into his coat and handed Mia a small black USB drive. What's this? She asked. The truth, Aiden said. Or at least, part of it. Mia plugged it into her phone using the adapter she always carried. A single video file appeared. Her heart pounded as she tapped play. The footage was grainy, recorded secretly. Her mother stood in an office at the estate, arms crossed, eyes red from crying. Marcus stood opposite her, towering, furious. You don't deserve any of this, Marcus hissed. You think Mom cares about you? She only gave you those shares out of pity. Her mother's voice trembled. I'm not fighting you. I just want peace. You'll have peace when you leave, Marcus spat. Take your kid and disappear. If you stay, I swear I'll destroy everything you have. You don't know what I'm capable of. The video ended abruptly. Mia's hands shook so violently she almost dropped the phone. He threatened her, she whispered. He threatened my mother. Aiden nodded. And she believed him. She knew Marcus had enough influence to carry through with it. She didn't want you growing up in that kind of environment. Mia's knees weakened, and she steadied herself against the table. All this time? I thought she was protecting herself. But she was protecting me. There's more, Aiden said quietly. Marcus didn't stop after she left. Mia looked up, tears burning her eyes. What else did he do? Aiden didn't sugarcoat it. He forged your DNA results to make sure no one could contest the inheritance. He pressured Dr. Hughes to alter the official records. He deleted your name from the family registry the moment you turned 18, when your legal claim to the shares would have kicked in. Each revelation felt like a hammer strike. He didn't just push me out. Mia whispered. He erased me from existence. Aiden's voice cracked. I wanted to tell you earlier. I really did. But Marcus threatened me too. He said if I ever helped you or your mother, he'd ruin my life. Yet you're telling me now? Because last night proved something, Aiden said. He's losing control. And you deserve to know everything before he tries something even worse. Mia closed her eyes, letting the truth settle over her. It felt like grieving her mother all over again, mourning the life they should have had, mourning the woman who carried all these burdens alone my entire childhood. Mia whispered. Every question she wouldn't answer. Every wall she built. None of it was because she didn't trust me. It was because she didn't trust them. Aiden stepped closer. Your mother loved you more than anything. She didn't want you touched by this family's darkness. And yet here I am, Mia said softly, standing in the middle of it. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The warehouse wind rustled through broken panels, carrying dust and forgotten echoes. When Mia finally looked up, her eyes were different, sharper, clearer, fueled by something that had been dormant for years. Resolve. I'm done running, she said quietly. And I'm done letting them write my story for me. Aiden nodded, almost relieved. Then you need to be careful. Marcus won't stop. Not now. Not when everything he's built is hanging by a thread. What about Eleanor? Mia asked. Did she know all of this? Aiden hesitated. She knew some. But Marcus? He's been manipulating her for years. She trusts him more than she should. Mia exhaled slowly. Then I have to make her see the truth. Aiden looked at her with a mixture of admiration and fear. Be careful, Mia. The Whitewoods don't handle threats lightly. Even if the threat is justified. Mia pocketed the USB, her grip tightening. This isn't about revenge, she said. It's about giving my mother back her voice. And giving myself back my name. She turned toward the warehouse exit, because now she knew the truth, and she wasn't going to stop until the entire Whitewood family knew it too. After leaving the warehouse, Mia felt something settle inside her, a clarity she had never known, a courage born not of anger but of truth. Aiden's confession, the video, the forged records. It was no longer a matter of reclaiming a name. It was justice. It was her mother. And when the notice came announcing a special shareholders meeting, she knew it was the moment Marcus had been preparing for. And the moment she had been waiting to stop. The Whitewood corporate headquarters rose like a glass mountain against the city skyline. Inside, the grand boardroom buzzed with tension. Executives shuffled in, whispering rumors, adjusting ties, glancing uneasily at the two empty seats reserved for the Whitewood heirs. At the head of the room sat Eleanor Whitewood, poised but strained. The lines around her eyes seemed deeper, her gaze unfocused, as if she sensed a storm but didn't yet know its shape. Marcus entered moments later, wearing confidence like armor. His son, Derek, followed behind, a smirking shadow. Marcus cleared his throat loudly, signaling the board to quiet down. Thank you for attending on such short notice, he announced. Given recent disruptions, it's time to secure the company's future. I formally propose transferring all operational authority to my son, Derek Whitewood, effective immediately. Murmurs rippled through the room. Eleanor lifted her chin. And what of Mia? She asked coldly. Marcus didn't flinch. There is no Mia in this family. And certainly not in this corporation. The words were delivered with such confidence, such practiced finality, that several board members nodded, until the boardroom doors suddenly opened. Every head turned. Mia stepped into the room with a calmness that didn't match the pounding of her heart. Liam walked beside her, carrying a folder of documents, and Aiden followed close behind, his expression grim but determined. Marcus paled. You shouldn't be here, he hissed. Mia didn't even look at him. You shouldn't be running this company. But here we are. Gasps scattered through the room. Eleanor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Mia, you came. Because the truth finally has a voice, Mia replied, placing a small box on the table. And today, everyone in this room will hear it. Marcus barked a laugh, loud, forced, desperate. This is ridiculous. She is not a shareholder, she is not a Whitewood, she is the daughter of your sister, Aiden snapped. And the rightful heir to the shares you spent 20 years hiding. The room erupted in chaos. What is he talking about? His sister? Is this true? I thought she left the country. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Enough. But Mia had already opened the box. She pulled out the first document, the share certificate. My mother, Elise Whitewood, received 30% of this company from Eleanor, Mia said, projecting her voice. She never relinquished it. And after her death, that ownership passed to me. She placed it in front of Eleanor, then she laid down 2 sets of DNA results. The fake one Marcus had used, and the untouched original Liam had obtained. Marcus falsified a DNA test to erase me, Mia said. He threatened a doctor to change the records. He manipulated this family and this company to secure power. Marcus's breath hitched, but he forced his voice steady. This is nonsense. You expect them to believe. Before he could finish, Aiden pulled out a USB drive with shaking hands, and this, he said, is the video of Marcus threatening her mother. Recorded the day before she disappeared from this family. Gasp swept the room. No, Marcus rasped. You wouldn't, but Aiden already plugged the drive into the large display. The video began. Elise Whitewood's trembling voice filled the boardroom. Marcus's threats echoed against the glass walls. His rage, his hatred, his fear of losing control, all laid bare for everyone to witness. When the footage ended, the room fell silent. No one looked at Marcus. Not even his son. Marcus stumbled back a step. This is a setup, he choked. A fabrication. They're trying to steal the company. Eleanor rose from her seat with a slowness that made the entire boardroom still. Marcus, she said, her voice dangerously soft, I entrusted you with everything. And you repaid me by tearing my family apart. He shook his head. Mother, listen to me, she's lying. Mia is lying. Aiden is lying. Enough, Eleanor snapped, louder than anyone had ever heard her speak. The walls shook with the force of her voice. You are the reason I lost my daughter. Marcus froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came. For decades, Eleanor continued, trembling, I believed she abandoned us. I believed she didn't want this family. But now I see. You drove her out. You threatened her. You stole from her. And now you try to erase her child to protect your greed. Her eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. You did this, she whispered. You destroyed my family. Marcus staggered forward as if struck. Mother, please. I did everything for the company. No, Eleanor said. You did everything for yourself. She turned toward the board members, who watched in stunned silence. I formally motion for Marcus Whitewood to be suspended indefinitely and subjected to a full federal investigation. Effective immediately. Several executives nodded before she even finished speaking. Marcus's face drained of color. You can't, this is my company, it never was, Eleanor said. Security entered the room. Derek, in a panic, slipped out the back door as if abandoning a sinking ship. Marcus stumbled between the guards, shouting incoherently, This isn't over, Eleanor. It isn't. His voice disappeared as the doors shut behind him. Silence washed over the room. Mia stood rooted to the spot, the weight of everything pressing down on her. She didn't feel triumph. Only a quiet ache. A sadness for the mother she lost, and the truth that came too late. Eleanor approached her slowly. Mia, she said softly, voice trembling, I don't know if you can ever forgive me. But today, you brought back my daughter. For the first time, Eleanor looked fragile, human, and Mia, despite everything, felt her chest tighten. I didn't come to hurt anyone, she whispered. I just wanted the truth. And you found it, Eleanor replied. And now? We must rebuild what was broken. The boardroom felt different now. Not colder. Not warmer. Just honest, and for the first time, Mia stepped into that truth without fear. Walking out of the boardroom, Mia expected to feel victorious. Instead, her chest felt strangely hollow, like the truth had taken up so much space inside her that nothing else could fit. Marcus had finally been exposed, stripped of the power he'd spent years clinging to. But the aftermath had only just begun. The next morning, headlines exploded across every media outlet in the city. Whitewood Heir under investigation for fraud. Corporate power struggle turns criminal. Marcus Whitewood suspended. Police involved. Paparazzi camped outside the Whitewood headquarters, shouting questions at every executive who walked by. Reporters dug into the family history with ruthless determination, uncovering old whispers about Elise's disappearance, the sudden absence of her daughter, and the decades-long silence that always seemed too convenient. Within hours, the Whitewood name, once synonymous with elegance and wealth, was tied to manipulation, threats, and a corporate cover-up. And Marcus? He was escorted into a police car that afternoon, pale and stiff, refusing to look at the cameras. His son Derek had already vanished by then, disappearing before investigators could question him. It was chaos. And Mia had started it. The truth had demanded it. Aiden found her at the edge of the city park that evening, sitting on a bench still warmed by the late sun. He hovered for a moment before joining her, unsure of how close he was allowed to be after everything. Mia, he said quietly, I'm sorry. She looked over, surprised by how tired he suddenly seemed. For what? For knowing pieces of the truth and not telling you sooner. For staying quiet when you deserved answers. I thought I was protecting everyone, but I only made things worse. Mia studied his expression, guilt, regret, and something tender hiding underneath. Aiden, you were afraid. Marcus intimidated everyone. Even your grandmother didn't see what he was doing. That doesn't excuse it, he whispered. But I need you to know. I never saw you as a threat. I always saw you as family. The kind I should have protected the most. His voice cracked at the end. Mia placed a hand gently over his. Then protect me now. Not from danger, just from silence. He nodded, emotion thick in his throat. A few days later, Mia was back at Bloom and Brew, wiping down tables after the morning rush. She had insisted on returning to work. She needed normalcy, something that belonged to her alone. Something untainted by the Whitewood legacy. The bell above the door chimed softly. She turned, and froze. Eleanor. Whitewood stood in the doorway. The older woman looked smaller outside the grandeur of the estate. The cold authority she always wore like a crown was absent. Instead, she held a folded envelope in both hands, almost timidly. Mia, she said, voice softer than Mia had ever heard it, may I speak with you for a moment? They stepped outside, where the bustle of the street created a muted background hum. Eleanor extended the envelope. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve your time. But I needed to say what should have been said years ago. Mia hesitated before opening it. Inside was a handwritten letter, every line filled with regret, confession, and grief for the daughter she lost and the granddaughter she failed to protect. I didn't know Marcus drove Elise away, Eleanor said quietly. I thought she abandoned us. I believed what he told me because he was my son. And I was blind. Her voice shook. I am sorry for your mother. And I am sorry for you. I can't undo what was taken from you, but I hope you'll allow me the chance to know you. For a moment, Mia couldn't speak. The pain, the shock, the apology, it all tangled in her chest. Finally, she nodded slowly. I don't know what the future looks like, Mia said. But I'm willing to start. Eleanor exhaled, relief softening her stern features. She rested a frail hand on Mia's arm before walking away. Leaving the letter with her. That evening, Mia stood inside the small house her mother once owned, the one she had just reclaimed through the finalization of the inheritance. Dust floated in the quiet air, and the late golden light filtering through the windows made everything glow like a memory. There were old photographs still on the shelves. Paintings her mother had never finished. A sweater draped over the back of a chair as if she might return any moment. Mia ran her fingers along the edge of a picture frame. A childhood photo of her and her mother, smiling, unaware of the war happening around them. For the first time, Mia understood the strength her mother carried. The sacrifices she made. The love that lived in every secret. This is ours again, Mia whispered. All of it. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the past settle, not as a burden, but as a foundation. The truth had taken so much from her. But it had also returned what mattered most. A name. A home. A beginning. The house her mother once loved was no longer just an inheritance on paper. It was real now, solid beneath her hands, warm beneath the soft afternoon light. And as Mia unlocked the front door again, this time not as an outsider but as the rightful owner, she felt something loosen inside her. Something she had held tight for too many years. The door creaked open, stirring a faint swirl of dust that danced in the beams of late-day sunlight. Mia stepped inside slowly, almost reverently, as if afraid she might disturb the echoes lingering in every corner. The air carried a hint of lavender, the scent her mother used to wear. It made her chest ache in a way that felt both tender and painful. She set her bag down and began walking through the living room. The space was a time capsule. Nothing extravagant, nothing grand, just shelves lined with photographs. Books her mother had loved, and small trinkets she collected from thrift stores and street markets. Mia ran her fingers across the edge of a wooden picture frame. Her mother's smile stared back at her, warm, steady, alive. For a moment, Mia felt 12 years old again, standing beside the woman who made even the smallest home feel like a kingdom. One by one, she began wiping the dust from each frame. Her movements were slow, deliberate. A photo from her first day of school. A blurry candid of the two of them baking cookies. A shot at the beach, wind in their hair, her mother laughing at something Mia couldn't remember. Every image carried a story she once thought she understood. But now, with everything she had learned, each memory felt rewritten, layered with the courage her mother never claimed credit for. This house kept your secrets, Mia whispered, brushing her thumb across a glass surface. And now it keeps your truth. She moved to the old bookshelf next, dusting off a ceramic figurine shaped like a swan, her mother's favorite animal. It had a small crack on the side. Mia remembered knocking it over when she was little and crying for an hour, thinking she'd ruined it. Her mother had hugged her and said, things break. People break. But love doesn't. Mia inhaled shakily. It was only now that she understood the depth of that sentence. Her mother had been breaking long before Mia realized, quietly, silently, but never letting the cracks reach her daughter. As she finished cleaning, the house felt different, brighter, somehow more awake. She walked toward the small bedroom that used to be hers. The walls still held faint marks from old glow-in-the-dark stickers. The bed was the same. So were the curtains her mother had sewn. Mia sat on the edge of the mattress, closing her eyes for a moment. The weight of the past week settled on her shoulders. She had confronted a powerful family. She had unearthed the lies that destroyed her mother's life. She had reclaimed everything Marcus tried to steal, but more than anything, she had found herself, the version of Mia who once felt small, unwanted, uncertain. That girl no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who had fought for the truth even when it terrified her. A soft wind rustled the curtains. Outside, flakes of snow began drifting from the sky. Slow, steady, almost ceremonial. Mia stood and walked to the balcony. Pushing open the glass door, she stepped into the crisp winter air. The cold bit gently at her cheeks, but she welcomed it. It felt cleansing, like a season turning below. The town moved quietly, cars humming, lights flickering on one by one. Life continuing as if nothing extraordinary had happened, but for Mia, everything had changed. She wrapped her arms around herself, not in fear, but in peace. Snowflakes landed on her coat, on her hair, on her eyelashes. The world felt softer under the blanket of white. She breathed in deeply. I was cast out by my family, she murmured, voice steady. But I never walked away from myself. The truth of that sentence settled into her heart like warmth after a long winter. This wasn't the end of her journey. It was the beginning, the doorway her mother hoped she would one day walk through. Mia closed her eyes as snow continued to fall. Each flake a quiet promise of a new chapter, one written not by the Whitewoods. Not by fear, but by her own hand, and for the first time in her life, she felt free.